The air is filled with a certain feeling of despair as the soldiers look like they are the military about to go into battle against Superman. They are being bludgeoned on the battlefield until the hero party finally arrives to face the challenge, the corpse god. The hero launches himself at the corpse god and slashes at him, but the wounds are superficial and the corpse god quickly recovers. The corpse god summons a dragon to aid it in battle, but the hero is able to kill it with some effort and continue the clash. The support watches on form the sidelines as the hero is locked in heavy combat, and even though he is known to be incredibly powerful, they are starting to have their doubts of his victory. He may be inching ever closer to death, but death is nothing new to the hero. He was born with an evil eye that allows him to see the souls of everything he has killed, from the rampaging bandits to the innocent ants. And if he can handle being haunted by ants, then he can handle anything. The fight goes on, and the hero performs a combo that breaks through the corpse god's defenses and reveals his true form. A brain in a jar. This whole thing is basically a game to the corpse god because he also has an evil eye and is able to hear the wails of the dead. But he actually kind of likes that stuff and took pleasure in hearing the tormented screams of those who wronged him. And now that the hero is getting serious, he would rather not join them, so uses his spell to become a part-time worker at Isekai Incorporated and gets the hell out of there. The corpse god wakes up in an alleyway in the body of a boy, and I'm no doctor, but I don't think that injury is a good thing. He is woken up in the streets of Japan, but he, or rather the owner of the body, apparently had a hit put on him, so he is being tracked. As he ponders his current situation, he is hit with the realization that he can never return to the other world. But before he can continue his train of thought, he is stopped by the police since he still has a slit throat. They talk to him, and he is able to pull Japanese knowledge from the brain of the body, and also discovers that the name of the body is Polka. The police are about to take him to the hospital, but then a girl jumps out of the sky and stomps on one of the officer's head. That dude's neck is definitely broken. She then grabs Polka and drags him off to an alleyway to ask if he still remembers her. Her name is Misaki, but he can't really piece the memories together, so he assumes that the girl is a friend. But his assumption is soon proved wrong as the girl pulls out a crowbar and is about to kill him a second time. He realizes that he is screwed and is about to be assassinated, so he takes off running, making his way to an abandoned building. He would normally be able to handle this, but this world has almost no magic in the air, and he can't even heal a slit throat at this rate, much less fight back. Misaki then shows up behind him and proceeds to attempt to murder him again, but even if he has no magic, he still has a lot of experience from his old life, even if his current body has the stamina of a toddler. But he eventually gets stabbed in the leg, rendering him largely handicapped. However, he isn't going to give up so easily. He runs into a room and Misaki follows him slowly, toying with him before she kills him. She tells him that coincidentally the room they are in is one that was famously used by the Yakuza to torture and kill people that they wanted to get rid of. But all Polka hears is, "Wait, people got killed here." As a necromancer, he can draw power from the souls of the dead, so he now has a source of power. Misaki still thinks she is about to kill him, but with his magic source back, she ends up as a shish kebab, and with that out of the way, he is finally able to think clearly and live the life he wants here. Back in the other world, after it was discovered that he possessed evil eyes, he was sold off by his parents to become a necromancer on the battlefield. But even after the war ended and the kingdom fell, all he wanted was to live a peaceful life. He went to a cave far away from other people to achieve this. But one day, a group of children wandered into the cave with nowhere else to go, so the corpse god took them in and raised them as his own. But then, the church found out and they got treated like a 15th century woman doing math. He couldn't let that slide, so he killed all those that caused this, and with nothing else to live for, awaited someone to come and slay him. In his last moments, he was able to use reincarnation magic, so he didn't want to let his second life end so easily. But he also didn't expect Misaki to go down so easily. It usually takes at least 3 stabs to kill people in the other world, so why did she die from just one? And he can't even prove she was an assassin, because who's gonna suspect the cute girl? At this rate, he's gonna have to go on the run again. Misaki was once a normal child with a happy life and good parents. Well, there goes her parents. After losing her parents, she became the Batman of the criminal underworld and began taking out the killers in the underworld until she got the nickname Zaki the Killer's Killer. And once she finally killed her parents' killer and avenged them, she realized that killing killers is still morally gray. So she wanted to make sure she still had some humanity left in her, so she took on a job to kill an innocent dude to see if she felt bad. But after killing the innocent Polka, she still felt nothing. And that was when she knew she was fricked up in the head. She has nothing else to live for. So she was about to turn herself into a pancake on the sidewalk, but then Polka started moving again, so he tracks her down and told her to go finish her job before she dies. But then she goes and dies at the hands of Polka instead. However, she is still able to think, and that is when she realizes that she is still alive, or rather appears to be alive, but it's actually a zombie. Before she was awakened, Clarissa, her boss, had come to avenge her death, but Polka had already healed her body by then. He starts talking about magic, but he soon realizes that there is no such thing in this world, so he tries to convince them that everything they just saw was just them tripping on mushrooms. However, as an alternative, he could just kill them all to leave no witnesses. Shortly after, news of a fire at Children's Hospital reaches them, and Polka is not about to stand by and let more children get roasted, so he Spider-Mans his way over there and leaps into the building to rescue the children, and somehow, no one really noticed the giant skeleton arm. After that, Misaki woke up and Lisa asks Polka what he plans to do from here. For the time being, he plans to make money so that he can live a peaceful life, so she assigns Misaki and Takumi to look after him. It would seem that people actually did notice the skeletons because now it is all over YouTube. Takumi is helping Polka move into his new room, and Misaki is just there chilling on the couch. He asks if she is really alright being around the dude that killed her, but she already had a bunch of screws missing, so being dead isn't going to be much of a loss. Takumi then asks Polka what he's going to do about the body's family, but he doesn't really know how to handle it since old memories are hard to recover. But right now, what is most important to him is that the Geldwood Church doesn't exist here, so there will be no witch hunts after him. And with that being the case, all he needs to do to have a peaceful life is to find the guy that hired Misaki to kill this body and ensure that there will be no further attacks on him. Clarissa is an intermediary used to hire assassins, but she has to keep client confidentiality, so he has to investigate this on his own. But first he has to make some money, so Misaki suggests he become an assassin, and soon after, someone approaches her with a job. She declines at first, but Polka wants to accept, so she moves along with it. It's all going to plan, but then the guy that contracted her shoots her in the back since he's got an old grudge against her, and this whole thing was a setup to get rid of her. Polka is just back there chatting with the ghosts of the people this guy has killed, and after hearing their stories, he agrees to avenge them. And long story short, he makes a human meatball out of them. When he gets back, Takumi asks why he listened to those children's souls if he views lives as nothing more than a game. But even if they are toys to him, he still takes good care of them. And it's not like Takumi is much better when it comes to handling lives, seeing as he works as part of an assassin group. They get along well enough after that, and later that night, Takumi asks if Misaki's body is going to decay at some point. Polka says it can repair itself and resist decay, but she'll have to eat raw meat if she gets hurt badly. She also has paralyzing spit, so she wants to test out on Takumi, and says he should be happy to let a cute girl bite him. But he's a firm believer in 2D waifu supremacy, so to him, Misaki is nothing more than a monster. But the mention of monsters gets Polka thinking about whether there might be other superhuman people in this world. And there definitely are. The police have begun looking into the strange things that have been happening lately, and this squad is tasked with all the cases that are too unbelievable to be publicized. Right now, they are after perpetrators called the Lemmings, the fire-breathing bug, and the one responsible for the skeletons. Up till now, they have only dealt with very skilled humans, but what will they do if that changes and they have to deal with an actual supernatural person? Meanwhile, Polka is thinking of ways to replenish his magic power, as finding ghosts isn't very efficient in modern Japan. However, there is one other source of magic he knows of in this world. Jewels possess enough magic in them that one bucket full would be enough to regain all his power. However, he soon realizes that he is too broke to even dream of owning that many gems. He could have sucked the mana out of the gems, but that would destroy them and leave the store bankrupt, and he is not heartless enough to do that. As they leave, one of the cops, Arese, corners them and grabs one of Takumi's drones and starts grilling them about their relationship with Takumi, as he has quite the history with that guy. Another long story short, they used to be buddies, but Takumi was a snitch and sold Arese out to save himself. Though Polka doesn't seem to care and still thinks of Takumi as a friend, so he wants to stick up for him. Though he would like to keep his powers a secret for now, so he is hesitant to use his powers to get out of this situation. However, Misaki was one step ahead of him and stepped on the Arese to buy them time to escape. Later, Arese is asking for the other officers to investigate the footprint on his chest. And while she thinks he may have been doing some kinky stuff, she recognizes the footprint as the same one from the human meatball. At the same time, there are some other officers talking about Lemmings, who is the very definition of superhuman. He is bulletproof, can turn invisible, and is currently in the precinct as they are speaking. At the same time, one other officer is at Melissa's bar and asking about Polka, and would you look at that? Polka and Misaki walk in at that exact moment. They start questioning Polka, but then the light go out and Lemmings has shown up. This dude is an absolute monster, and even the souls of the people he has killed are too scared to haunt him. The cops try to arrest him, but you can see how that went as they are sent flying. Lemmings was here for Misaki, so he picks her up and runs off. And while Polka wants to save her, he can't use his powers in front of the police, otherwise his chance at a peaceful life is going to be gone. Besides, he's only known her for a short while, and she's a bit loopy in the head, so he might just have to let her go. But then again, Polka is currently a loner, so he can't really afford to lose one of the only two friends he has like that, so he decides to save her. But even with the darkness allowing him to use his magic without being seen, Lemmings is just built different and can handle anything Polka has to throw at him. He's after some information from Misaki, and while she doesn't want to tell him initially, after he threatens Polka, she gives up the info to prevent any harm from coming to him. Though the time she bought was enough for Polka to finish his last spell, Lemmings was still able to escape, so he goes to report what he found to his employer, and while he is there, he also points out that Polka is still alive. And the employer seems to have a history with Polka and wants him dead. Lemmings did end up leaving them alone, so that was one problem solved, but Polka is still flat broke, so to remedy that, he starts a fortune teller operation. With his powers, he's able to talk to the ghosts to actually give accurate fortunes, and he is making a ton doing this. However, after hours, he gets two unusual visitors, and the original Polka's ghost, who was put in the shark, explains are his niece and nephew. They try to get an explanation for why he is on the run, but he can't tell them the truth. He does, however, notice a spirit behind them asking him to protect them, so that is what he will do. He plans to go back to his house tomorrow, but he still doesn't know anything about Polka, so Takumi pulls up some info and tells him that Polka is the second son of the head of the Shinoyama group, which are trillionaires. The head is also pretty old now, so if he dies, Polka would be getting an inheritance in the billions, and that's why someone hired Misaki to go after him. There goes his peaceful life, but at least he's not broke anymore. However, the guy who wants him dead, Takaru, is going to be after him, so he needs to keep his guard up. So the next day, Polka heads to the Shinoyama residence with Misaki for protection. The brief layout of Polka's family: Rosen is the head of the family and the eldest son is Gaku, who's 48 years old. But Rosen still had a little more left in the tank, and thus Polka was born 30 years later. They all have a meal together, and Misaki is performing at a professional level of bullshitting to come across as a polite girl. It also happens that her family used to own a steel company, but with her parents' death, the company no longer exists. Polka thinks this is going pretty well and he might be able to get through this somehow. But then his nephew notices the shark doll that has the original Polka's soul in it, which for clarity, I will now call OG Polka. Polka's niece, Saya, recognizes the OG Polka shark doll and is an active participant in the shark waifu wars. And she's also a shut-in, so there's that too. There is also the suck-up that is married to one of the head's nieces, Soma, but he's not important for now. However, they've forgotten to mention one other person that is here, Rosen himself, who at that moment walks in and wants to speak with Polka. They have a nice chat about what he has been up to recently, but as he actually cared for OG Polka, he knows for a fact that the Polka in front of him is not the OG. Rosen threatens him to find out who he really is, but Polka suddenly feels that his nephew and niece are in trouble, so he rushes off to save them and promises to explain once he returns. The spirit that asked Polka to help the twins was Suzuka, who one night, while looking for a purse that the twins lost, came across a scheme to infiltrate the family by the Soma and an accomplice. She goes oh hell nah and tries to warn the others, but shortly afterwards, she was burnt to death to keep her quiet. The accomplice infiltrates his target locations and sets the place up to burn down quickly, and right now he is leading the twins somewhere. But before he can take them to the unmarked white van, Kazuki realizes that they are not heading to an exit, nor is there any candy. This guy is dangerous, but Misaki arrives just in time to stop him and the kids manage to escape, but the house is already on fire, so there is nowhere for them to go. But Polka is able to save them from the falling rubble, and now that the kids are safe, Takaru is going to deal with Soma since he already figured out he was part of all this. As he was driving off to escape the scene of the crime, he gets boxed in and captured. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the fire-breathing bug is trying to escape using a disguise, but Polka can still sense his soul, so there is no hiding. He tries to create some distance by using his flames, and while Polka could easily get past it with his magic, he doesn't have much magic left to use. But he ends up not having to do anything as Lemmings appears out of nowhere and takes down the fire user. Now that that whole mess has been taken care of, Polka still has to explain to Rosen why he is in the body of his son. He explains the whole story, and while it is quite unbelievable, the proof is right there. But if everything he said is true, then that means Misaki was the one that killed the OG Polka, and Grandpa Rosen is going to avenge his grandson. Misaki isn't opposed to dying for what she did, but OG Polka stops him, and through some charades that I would be unable to decipher, he tells Rosen that he doesn't want Misaki to die. Rosen relents, and in any case, Polka can revive OG Polka as soon as he has a new body to possess, so Rosen would be willing to hook him up with the latest cyberpunk gear. But OG Polka wants to be the one to possess the android body since it is really cool. However, since there is still someone after OG Polka, then it would be in his best interest to leave the body with the one that can use magic to defend it. Later, as they are about to leave, Misaki thanks OG Polka for protecting her from his dad, and Polka is wondering why OG Polka likes Misaki so much even though she's the one that killed him. But right now, I can see two big double D reasons. Meanwhile, at the police station, after being shown a video of Polka's skeletons, a criminal centered around performance called Phantom Solitaire, otherwise known as Ten Polza. Now you see me, now you don't, and is on his way to find the source of those skeletons. His previous escapades include turning a building invisible and kidnapping all the political leaders in the country in one day. And after all that, he just turned himself in. He did all of his magic tricks to find someone who could do real magic, and now he thinks he has found one. So after his escape, he hijacked a news station to make his return known to the world, and following that, he meets with the fire-breathing bug. And if you are confused, this is the real one and the other was just an imitator. Ten called him here to ask for his help in tracking down the magical person, but he isn't interested in that and more so wants to get rid of Ten since he is the only person that was able to find him. Firebug's mission is to make the world perfect by burning anything that he deems to be a bug in the code, so Ten uses that to get him interested in the anomaly of an actual magic user in the world. And while Firebug will likely try to burn the magic user, that is a problem he will face when it happens. Meanwhile, said magic user is busy comparing the other world's powerful creatures to this one, and in the rankings, Lemmings would still rank very high in the threat category even in the other world. But before they can continue, the doorbell rings and Seo is standing there. She wants to stay at Polka's place for the time being since her room was burnt down in the fire at the mansion, and she brought an attendant called Lei with her. Though part of the reason she was sent here was so that Rosen could keep an eye on and protect Polka. The next morning, Sayo isn't really into this whole mornings thing, and she chooses to go back to sleep immediately, so Lei starts to prepare some breakfast. Meanwhile, at the Shinoyama residence, the police officers are currently investigating the fire and are asking some questions when Takeru comes up to them. They ask him some questions since they believe that the one that caused the fire might be related to the fire-breathing bug. But Takeru has no intention of aiding them and rather takes the opportunity to point out that they suck at their jobs. They leave without getting much, but he manages to take a picture of a family photo and recognize Polka as the same guy from the bar. And with him being near all the recent disasters from their perspective, he might be at the center of all of this. Back at Polka's house, Lei wakes up late because he doesn't trust Polka in the slightest. Though Rosen vouched for him, he still sees no reason to trust a fake Polka, and he never really liked the real Polka either since he was always jealous of him. Some years ago, he was working for his family, and I don't know what crazy stuff they had him doing, but he lost both arms and legs as a result on his first job. And to make it worse, his father was going to start testing poisons on him since he couldn't move anymore. 10 out of 10 parenting right here. Well, Rosen heard this and rightfully thought that's messed up, so he bought him instead and gave him some prosthetic to allow him to serve the Shinoyama family, which would technically count as slavery, but his intentions were good. The Shinoyama group has connections in both the normal and criminal society, even having ties with an assassin family, which have access to any means to accomplish their goal. And though we won't see much of it, I assure you that this hot tub scene was very essential to the plot. Lev was part of the assassin family and he is currently spying on Polka, but nothing he is doing makes any sense to him. The next day, they are about to reopen their fortune-telling business when the police show up again. They say they are on their lunch break, so they decided to come get their fortunes read, but Arase doesn't like the idea of fortune-telling, so Iwa will be the only one getting his fortune told. Polka has no reason to refuse paying customers, so he agrees to do it and Misaki leads them to the other room. The session starts and they figure out that Takumi is probably giving him information on the client in real time, but then Polka brings up a symbol that no one else should know about and Iwa gets riled up wondering why Polka knows that. He calms down after realizing that he's assaulting a minor and apologizes for his aggression. He then pays and leaves, but Lei is stuck wondering what must have been written on that paper to make a police officer act like that. He wants to go investigate, so she heads after the officers to find out more about it. Meanwhile, a bank has just caught on fire and the bank manager is freaking out, but not because the bank is going up in flames, but rather because he has something he would get in a lot of trouble for if it were found. However, it has already been found by the fire-breathing bug and unfortunately, he was not very fireproof. Ten pops out from underneath a pile of burning money and takes a look at the paper that the bank manager was trying to hide, but it's not paper, rather it's human skin with that same symbols that got Iwa riled up. Iwa is currently talking with Melissa about how Polka could have known about that symbol as the only person who knew it was his former partner, Hozurati. But that same Hozurali is currently dead and living in the pen that Polka put him in. He was once an internal affairs detective and he knew Iwa personally, so he wanted to pass on a message to him. He doesn't want to tell them what he wrote down, but he apologized for causing trouble for Polka. This was one of his regrets, so as part of the pact that Polka made to acquire his services, Polka is obligated to help him resolve it. At the same time, Ten has snuck into the prison to meet a prisoner known as the Grocer. Even though this is a high-security prison, he is allowed to keep a wide variety of products and trade them to whoever wants them. But seeing as he is in prison, his customer base must not be all that great. Ten wants to purchase information about the symbol that he found and the Grocer has that info, but he is only going to trade it for information of equal value. However, Ten has no information to give, but he is willing to pay any price to learn about this symbol. The day of Ten's big show comes around and blimps fill the skies, but all of them carry that symbol, and as Polka finally sees it, he recognizes it as the one of the fallen kingdom in his world. This symbol being revealed has angered many of the underground society and they want to make the problem go away, and that means getting rid of Ten. When he asked for the price of the information about the symbol, the Grocer valued it at 3 trillion. And while that may seem like he unfairly inflated the price, he did in fact unfairly inflated the price, and as a result, Ten decided to just go ahead with his plan and find out about the symbol later. And now he is seated atop one of the blimps that he launched in a lawn chair, but not long after, he gets sniped. However, he already knew that this would piss a lot of people off, so he prepared a dummy to take the hit for him. He is actually somewhere else and sets up a prize of 300 million for anyone who can provide any information on the symbol. Meanwhile, Sayo asks Polka to explain what all his reincarnation and magic talk has been about since she was right there when they were talking about it. He explains everything to her and she actually believes it, but it is a lot of information to take in that OG Polka was killed and taken over by the corpse god, so she decides to go take a bath to calm down. Shortly thereafter, Misaki follows her and tells her that she is the one who killed Polka. And once again, guidelines dictate that you won't see much, but this bath scene is very necessary to the plot. Sayo knows OG Polka and she knows that he has probably forgiven Misaki for killing her, but Misaki hasn't forgiven herself for killing an innocent boy. But Sayo is sure that since Misaki likes shark movies too, then she can't be a bad person. They get out of the bath and Takumi points out that she just took OG Polka into the bath with her. She is incredibly upset, but not because she was naked in front of OG Polka, but rather because he became a shark and she didn't. And because of this, she asks Polka to give OG Polka her body and put her in a shark. They don't end up doing that, and instead discuss what to do about the underground society that is using the emblem. Penhozuroli has a good idea of someone who might be related to it, and that is Takasu, the superintendent of the police force. The same person that just put Detective Iwa in charge of was also put in charge of finding Ten. Some time passes and Polka continues with his fortune teller business, and he has started to generate quite the fan club here. Takumi spent all night researching the symbol, but he was unable to find any good information. Penhozurali is still hesitant to give any information as it would get them involved in this whole mess. But while Polka would be able to handle it himself, the OG Polka and the Shinoyama family would likely be in danger. Iwa is briefing the team on the mission to investigate Ten, and he plans to have them track down the symbol to locate him. But at this very moment, Ten is disguised as a normal guy at Polka's fortune-telling business. Since Takumi is pulling information about the guy he is disguised as, Ten thinks that this must be fake and just using information about the person to trick them into thinking it's real. But as he is about to leave, Polka brings up the spirit of a girl in a wheelchair behind him. Ten plays it off, but he realizes that this must mean that the fortune teller is the real deal. As he leaves, he realizes that one of the girls that came today is related to the fire-breathing bug. Back at the precinct, some police officers that were pulled in to aid the investigation are causing trouble for Iwa. They are still salty about the time that Iwa spent in internal affairs that forced them to stop being crooked cops. They are about to start a fight, but Arase is not the type that you can simply ignore. He was about to snap this man's arm in half, but Iwa gets him to calm down a bit. They then try to blackmail Arase, but another pair enters and this guy performs the most classy arm dislocation I have ever seen. This is Tozawa and the blonde is Yatsu, and they are old friends of Iwa. In order to track down Ten, they must be prepared to take down any abnormal people involved, and to do that, they got the whole team back together. That night, Ten lands on Polka's building roof looking for Polka, and is met with some knives from Lei. Meanwhile, Polka is sleeping soundly while the fire-breathing bug is about to set this place on fire. He wakes up and receives a call from the fire-breathing bug, and she asks him if he is also a child of Sabermund. And that is a name from Polka's old world, so he wonders how she could possibly have heard that. He asks if she was from the other world, but it doesn't seem like it since she doesn't know anything else about the world. Polka scans the area to find out where the call is coming from, but he is unable to locate her. However, he does spot Ten and Lei on the roof fighting. Ten realizes that he is outmatched, so he tries to bluff his way out of this, but Lei is still dead set on capturing Ten. So he tries to get him to back off by saying he has an extra card of his sleeve, and he must have maxed out his bluff because Lemmings falls out of the sky. Lemmings works for Takaru, so he was given orders not to harm Lei no matter what he does, so Lemmings just tanks all the hits and inches closer to Ten, who is scared out of his mind. Meanwhile, on the ground, the police find the fire-breathing bug's accomplice standing in front of the building, and she is acting pretty suspicious. Polka is done playing around as he recognizes both of their souls as the ones who came to his fortune-telling earlier, so he's going to capture them, and to do that, he uses his domain expansion. The domain causes an uneasy feeling in everyone within it, and also makes it easier for him to use magic. The girl on the ground makes up an excuse for being there and leaves since the police have nothing on her aside from being a little odd. Polka decides to target the people on the roof first and creates invisible hands to avoid being seen. Ten was going to use the commotion to slip away, but the invisible hands start grabbing at them, and while he is giving Lemmings some trouble, it proves too difficult to restrain him, so he goes after Ten instead. With the limited magic in the air, Polka can exercise much finer control over his power, and Ten is simply ecstatic, since this proves that magic actually exists. In the end, Polka doesn't manage to capture either of them, but he was able to stop the girl on the ground. With all that happened, the underground society found out about all this and are in a frenzy trying to find the source of that power for themselves, so there is no telling what will happen next.